All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, recording on a Thursday afternoon. We're going to talk about Bears Commanders, Cardinals Dolphins, Cowboys 49ers.
Well, I think we can pretty much wrap it up, Jay. It's Hang Banner 19. I'll get to work, and you can start designing the rings. I think I've seen enough. No, in seriousness, the Celtics were amazing. That was a bad spot for the Knicks. But for real actionable takeaways, most of it comes from last night's action. The Magic have the best defense in the NBA. That was an amazing performance, particularly in the second half from that unit. And I cannot wait to see if they can find any ceiling offensively this year. That is going to be a really, really fun team to watch. For the first time in my life, I am over market on the Warriors. I don't know how this happened, but their bench is unbelievably good and deep. And they are going to use a 12-man rotation, which I fully agree with because all of these players can play, which I think should help bear fruit as they can kind of keep their guys healthy. I think the rookie of the year market is quite broken. The best rookie I saw play by margin was Yves Missi. I'm not sure I'm getting that name right, but he definitely had an immediate and obvious impact for the Pelicans, and the Pelicans need him. So he's a kind of one to watch surely in the rookie of the year market. Tankathon may be on already in Toronto and Portland. I don't know what those two teams were doing in terms of just the decision making of compiling those rosters and then how they elected to employ the rotations. And then, of course, if you had Ime Udoka as your coach of the year this year, I think you can pretty much put that one on hold. The Rockets coaching in the second half was an abomination. And I worry a little bit about exactly how that group is going to ultimately realize the potential because they did not look like the sum of their parts in the loss to the Hornets. How about you?
I second your point on the Magic. That was surprising that Miami no-showed to that extent after it was close early. Outside of that, I think the Celtics, they still belong in their own tier at the top. The Raptors might be just a complete mess from the start. Outside of that, I thought the most interesting thing was actually the fact that the Warriors started that big, and the fact that they're going to go with Wiggins, Kuminga at the 2-3, and no Pajemski, no DeAnthony Melton. Like defensively, that team is, I think, going to be a monster. And yeah, I think they were kind of set for a kind of meandering season of low 40s wins, kind of in the same spot that they've been the past couple of years, fighting for play-in fringe 8 seed. But now they're a bit more interesting if they're going to play such a unique starting lineup where no one is like super big, but everyone is bigger than their position outside, I guess, of Trace. But yeah, they're going to be an interesting team. I'm with you on them probably. I think the fact that they just go so deep, they should rack up regular season wins, and wouldn't be shocking if they end up like a 48-win team or something. That's in the realm of outcomes. All right, let's jump to the NFL. The Chicago Bears are 2.5-point favorites at the Commanders. Jayden Daniels, at this point, probably not expected to play, though he hasn't been ruled out as we're recording. This is kind of not a real line, I would say, at the moment, where I'd imagine it's going to close bigger if it's Mariota. It's going to close smaller if it's Jayden Daniels. Do you think there's any best way to play this market?
I think so. The fact that it's not at the key number of 3 yet, and that it will likely close 3 once there's confirmation that it's Mariota, is kind of worth paying attention to. I agree directionally with the way that this market has moved from the look ahead when it was expected to be Daniels to now currently expecting it to be Mariota. I think the total has not been adjusted enough down. This is a nasty spot for the Commanders offense, not only trying to kind of formulate a plan this week for how they want to approach a Bears defense without really knowing who the quarterback is going to be. And then kind of with the tools and the weapons that they have, particularly in the passing game, I'm not sure how they find success here. They really only have Terry McLaurin, who can be a game breaker at wide receiver. And he draws his toughest matchup of the season by far in going up against Jalen Johnson. The tight end Zach Ertz has been a huge part of their success, and the coverage from the linebacker of the Bears is awesome. So Commanders, I think, are going to have a difficult time getting into the 20s in this game, assuming that Mariota is the guy. I think in a lot of ways, the offensive line has looked better than they are for the Commanders because of the rushing threat of Jayden Daniels and what that does to the way teams have to prepare defensively. So Mariota may be able to do a decent Daniels impression, but I'd like to see it twice. I know he had the highest total EPA generated of any quarterback last week, which is insane, but he was going up against the Carolina defense, and this is a monumental step forward from that. So I guess just in general, under 43.5, I think closes 42.5 or 43 once we get confirmation of the Washington quarterback situation. And I guess on the other side of the ball, people have, I think, gotten a little too excited a little too quickly about the Caleb Williams, kind of rising from the ashes of two terrible performances to start the season. The offensive line is playing better. They're protecting better. They're scheming a little bit better. But I think there is still a long way for this unit to grow. And against a well-coordinated team that Dan Quinn is going to have out there. And, good linebacker play from Luvu, great defensive tackle play from Deron Payne. And then just in general, solid, kind of workmanlike production everywhere else has been a solid recipe so far this season for the Commanders defense to at least show up. So I don't see this necessarily as, Chicago being able to have unlimited success offensively and really put pressure on this total, particularly as they are on the road and coming off the bye. So for me, under 43.5 is the easy and obvious button to press here.
Okay, where do you think the Commanders' defense will rank the rest of the season? Because the past 4 weeks, they are 5th in EPA per play as a defensive unit. Now, some of that is skewed by playing Andy Dalton and Deshaun Watson, but they also played Lamar Jackson and to a lesser extent Kyler Murray. So that is, I think, somewhat impressive even when you adjust a little bit for opponent, even if they are getting seemingly a little bit lucky with the divergence between their success rate and their EPA. Where do you think this unit will rank?
Well, considering what the Baltimore Ravens have done to every other defense that they've gone up against since they really hit their stride, I think that the Washington defense has to at least be considered on the fringes of league average. I came into the season expecting this to be a bottom 3 unit based on just the names available from just the, kind of understanding who was capable of playing at the NFL level here. I thought it was strange the way they put this roster together and bringing in all the kind of second, third, and fourth tier guys from Dallas along with Quinn, but he obviously understood well that those guys had room to grow in more featured roles, and they have. And so I guess really just have to tip your hat to the way that Quinn is developing these players. And, I didn't really have a good read that he was, I thought he was more of a give the guy elite ingredients and he will make you a gourmet meal. I did not know that he was a guy that was going to be able to take average players and get above average play out of them to mask what is, there's some pretty clear flaws in this defense, particularly in the secondary. So I guess overall, I'm impressed with the way that they have played to this point in the season. And I would think that they end the season at least league average, and maybe, adjusting for opponent, maybe they're a hair below league average. But as you will note, as you look at their schedule, they don't have a league average opponents left. They have an easy schedule remaining here. So this Washington defense might ultimately look like they are covering themselves in glory by the time we get to the postseason.
Indeed. For what it's worth, my numbers, assuming that Daniels is out this week, have the Commanders plus 109 fair to win 11 games or more, which I don't think really reconciles with Dan Quinn being like plus 350, plus 400 type of range in the market. I think he should be the favorite over Kevin O'Connell. Going from 4 wins to 11, I think will be a pretty emphatic Coach of the Year case. Doesn't guarantee victory given how abstract the award is and how dependent it is on momentum, but that certainly would put Quinn in a very good position. Have them, what have I got them to make to win the division? I've got them plus 158, so even cooler on market, but plus 158 win the NFC East. That should be, again, pretty emphatic Coach of the Year case, certainly relative to what his price is at the moment.
Let me ask you a quick follow-up to that, because I agree. I think Quinn should be the favorite right now. But do we wake up in a couple weeks and Andy Reid's the favorite if he's still undefeated?
I think it depends how Quinn and Kevin O'Connell continue to go. Like if Quinn loses this week, which he probably will, given that he's an underdog, and Kevin O'Connell has another loss in the next couple of weeks, then I think Reed will be he will become the favorite, just because the more you go undefeated throughout the season, the more it's kind of magnetically you are drawn to being the favorite. But I think that it's not like a bubble per se, though it is a little bit, where the moment Reed takes a loss, he's in huge trouble. And then the moment he takes a second loss, I think it's pretty much all over. And for everyone who's saying like, oh, if he has one loss, like how does he not win? Well, I think in 2020, he was 14-1. They'd clinched the 1 seed. Mahomes he came third in MVP, and Reed got like 2 votes out of 50. Now I get it's different because they had, that was like Tyreek Hill and super explosive offense, and there's more coaching that you can point to because they don't have weapons, but it's still Patrick Mahomes. And I think what people who are super bullish on Reed, and I am bullish on Reed as well, and I think he's a bet relative to price. I think the one thing that you have to bake in is that if they do get to say 16-1 or 15-2, and so they're 6-0 right now. So if they're going to close 10-1, 9-2, if they're going to do that, that almost certainly involves Patrick Mahomes looking better and putting up better stats as he goes, which will draw more attention away from Reed and focus it more on Mahomes and MVP and all that type of thing. But again, if you go 16-1, that's a pretty strong coach of the year case.
I will admit it's tough to find competitive games left on their schedule, let alone losses. and it will be funny if Steve Spagnuolo combined with Patrick Mahomes' worst season as a pro carry Andy Reid to his first coach of the year.
Yeah, I think probably the inflection point is that Buffalo game in week 11 on the road, where if they win that, then it gets really smooth from that point, given that, Carolina, Vegas, Chargers, Cleveland, and then Houston, but that's in KC, at Pittsburgh, at Denver. That is not a cakewalk, but as close to a cakewalk as you can kind of get. So he'll be in very good position if he can snaffle that game in Buffalo. All right, before we get to Cards-Dolphins this Saturday night, number 3, Penn State continues their quest for a national title as they travel to Camp Randall for a showdown with Wisconsin. Coverage of the battle starts at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. All right, Arizona Cardinals against the restored Miami Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa set to play. Dolphins are 3.5-point favorites. The total is 45.5. I think the Dolphins are an interesting team to talk about from a handicapping and just team rating perspective, where I don't think anyone thinks like Tua Tagovailoa is a top 5, top 7 quarterback in the NFL, but I think everyone recognizes his kind of severe importance to this offense when you see the drop off from him to Huntley. So how much of an upgrade do you think the Dolphins get as a team now going from Huntley back to Tua?
Massive. And I would kind of qualify this discussion and the question you asked with, it's almost impossible for a Shanahan type system to divorce the system from the quarterback when you're kind of coming up with a, kind of composite rating, right? And McDaniel has looked lost in the absence of Tua. And I think the reality is that a lot of what he has designed, a lot of what he has kind of built into what, his identity as a coach relies on Tua's ability to execute it. And, I think that if you told me for sure that Tua was going to be 100% in this game, married with what we know McDaniel can do as far as systematic advantage, then I would say that this should be more like Dolphins -6. Now, I think the hesitancy of will there be rust? Will Tua himself be as kind of, willing to get the ball out of his hand quickly, or kind of try to be in any way protective of his own health and well-being out there? That alone has me kind of treating him like 80% Tua in this game. So my fare is in the ballpark of 4.5. And it still says bet the Dolphins. Part of the reason that I think, when you combine Tua with McDaniel, it's completely reasonable to put that pair in a top 7 of the NFL. And I think that you have to also acknowledge the fact that there are elite weapons that are also, again, selected specifically, and the play has been designed around getting the ball to these players, and the limitations of some of the other aspects of the offense, like the pass blocking and just in general the ability to run kind of vanilla generic offense is all kind of part of the same fragile system that they build, but with the pieces that are healthy and in play for this game, I think the Dolphins offense is going to have no issues moving the ball at will against the Cardinals. I don't think it's an accident that Justin Herbert had his best game against this Cardinals defense, and the Cardinals lose another meaningful piece at linebacker and Gardick with the ACL injury recently. So not sure how the Cardinals generate pressure in this one. Not sure how they get Tua into a game state where he is less inclined to just run the good plays and more inclined to, kind of wait and hold and be, defensive. And so I think, Dolphins, if they can come out and execute well early, if they can generate a lead, if they can put the Cardinals on their heels, they could turn this one into a win by margin at home. And I think the vibes in the locker room, the stuff that you're hearing from all the players and coaches about how excited that everybody is that their season is not lost and that this is an opportunity to rise from the ashes. I think it all checks out to me, and I think this is a good spot for them to flex a little bit against a Cardinals team that was extraordinarily lucky to get a win on Monday Night Football and now has to turn around on a short week, travel across the country, and play in an early time slot, which is probably one of the least desirable situations on their entire schedule. So this is Dolphins for me, and it's one of my favorite looks of the week.
Okay. Yeah, my uninformed prediction would be that I don't think Tua is going to play with apprehension or hesitance based on everything he's done in his career and everything that he's said. The fact that he's not going to wear a Guardian cap, the fact that he got hurt kind of trying to take on a safety in Buffalo and making that type of move. I just don't think, from what I've seen him put out on the field, I just don't think this infects his mind, and maybe it should more than it does. But I just think that he's probably going to play normally, which from a football perspective bodes well for the Dolphins. What have you made of Kyler Murray's year so far? Because I was not very impressed against the Chargers, where he didn't seem comfortable at all as a passer. Now, he added the rushing value, and that's a part of his game, and that's not going away, and that's why he's a good quarterback, or at least that's what elevates him above what he otherwise would be. But from a pure passing perspective, I just didn't think he looked comfortable, whether it was the apprehension about the pressure that's coming without his offensive line, the fact that him and MHJ don't seem on the same page. What have you made of Kyler's year?
Yeah, I was not impressed either, and I can't really put my finger on it other than it feels like the weapons that he's got to work with on the passing game are best designed to be effective over the middle of the field, and maybe because of his stature, he is not seeing that portion of the field as well. A little bit of a Russell Wilson effect, maybe. I'm guessing here, but it doesn't really feel like the team as a whole is, right pieces in the right shape in the right holes, if that makes sense. And I know that his athletic ability that was clearly on display with the 44-yard rushing touchdown is kind of a differentiating factor. And as long as he is healthy, he is going to have that X factor in his game. And his ball is beautiful. Like, he has a beautiful deep ball, but the way that the current NFL defenses are being kind of thrown at this Cardinals unit, if you're not able to take advantage of the short and intermediate stuff over the middle of the field with the weapons that you've got, who are big bodies, then you're just making life tough on yourself. And it feels like that's the general vibe I get watching this Cardinals offense, which is, God, this is way tougher than it ought to be. And I'm not 100% sure why. And it's not about the sequencing. It's not about the play design necessarily. He's certainly getting, plenty of support from the running game. The pass blocking and the pass protection is grading really well. And they're missing their best lineman in Will Hernandez. So I don't even think that's an excuse. So, something about the way that he is playing the position just isn't really jiving with the way the weapons he has to work with are capable of getting open. And I kind of would sort of say that we may just be in a situation where his talents and his where he excels just don't really match with the way they've constructed this roster otherwise.
Yeah, I think Kyler's kind of been the guy this year that he's been all of his career, where there's extreme highs and lows, and it ends up as a pretty solid quarterback and someone that you can win with, but not one of the top 8 to 10 guys until perhaps he gets a better context and a better O-line, which I don't think he's really ever had in Arizona. And then hopefully he can develop a bit more of a rapport with Marvin Harrison to go Trey McBride, and then he'll have the context that has kind of eluded him so far. All right, 2 storied franchises renew their rivalry on Sunday night. Find out if Dak Prescott and the Cowboys can get back on track after their bye week when they face off against Brock Purdy and the 49ers. Coverage of the matchup starts at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer.
Okay, the big one on Saturday Night Football, season's on the line. Niners will either have their 5th loss to the Cowboys, their 4th. The Niners are down to 4-point favorites against the Cowboys. The look ahead on this was 7 before the Niners lost all of the human beings on their team. The total is 46.5. Dak Prescott has obviously had some dire moments in this stadium, on this platform as well. What do you think happens in this game, Drew?
You mentioned the look ahead. Did you know that preseason the look ahead was 4.5?
So come full circle.
It's come full circle. It's been adjusted in favor of the Cowboys, which just whoa, okay. Yeah, I mean, this is a buy low, Jay, on one of these teams. choose your fighter. Like I'm stuck here, man. I have tried to find ways to believe that this is kind of the nadir for the Niners, and that they're going to rally from this slow, and they're going to get it done with guys you never heard of, and Kyle Shanahan's going to kind of find his mojo again. But the degree to which they did not get up last week for the Chiefs has been gnawing at my gut all week. Like, what happened? Like, why was that team so flat for that particular matchup, and why was that team unable to have any special wrinkles, have any kind of unique, kind of game planning? Why was the game plan just such an obvious miss? I didn't understand why the Niners weren't able to be more effective early in that game. And you want to give the Chiefs credit for it, fine, but I felt like that game told me a lot more about the Niners than the Chiefs. The fact that the Niners succumbed to all the injuries, on top of the fact that there's just a little bit that's not clicking right now with with what Kyle Shanahan is trying to do from a vision standpoint, has me concerned that there is not a bounce for this team this year. And it's frustrating and disappointing, because I really want to see them be, kind of a threat to all of these up and coming teams in the NFC and the playoff hunt. So, it's got me a little bit on my heels in terms of where to go here from a betting angle standpoint. I almost think that if you feel like this is the buy low spot for the Cowboys, that you're better off playing some other exotic market where there's a higher payoff, because if the Cowboys win this game, they should be able to build a little bit of momentum in the next handful of weeks to where, you're talking about them back in the, in the discussion to winning the NFC if they get healthy and they get right. But, I think the reality of the fact that both of these teams, the last time we saw them play, were such massive disappointments, makes this a really challenging handicap. And I guess the question I would have for you, like, is there something about the way that Kyle Shanahan is coordinating the offense this year for the Niners that is just, it's not working as effectively? And I want to absolve Brock Purdy in a lot of ways, because I feel like he is playing better than he did last year, and he's being asked to do more difficult things. And I'm not sure why a coach who I have as much respect for as Shanahan can't take a step up from Purdy's performance and marry that with what is already so successful with this, with his scheme, which seems to be, for the most part, a bit player agnostic. And I'm just banging my head against the wall here.
Yeah, I think so. With the Niners, I think, they're 3-4. I think you kind of need to take a step back and look what they've actually done. Their 3 wins were all fairly emphatic against the Jets, the Pats, and the Seahawks. They lost the Rams game that they had no business whatsoever losing. There was just a lot of weird stuff that happened in that game. You play that game again, and the Niners really should win it the vast majority of the time. The Vikings game, I do think they deserve to lose, but that was very close as well. And there were some weird plays there, and they basically lost because of a 99-yard touchdown to Justin Jefferson that Darnold threw from his own end zone. And then the Arizona game, they lost their kicker, which cost them the game. And then the Kansas City one, that was the real mess where they got completely outplayed. And I thought that Purdy had been magnificent through the first 6 games, and then he was just dreadful against Kansas City. Like, you can say that from a scheme perspective, maybe Shanahan didn't optimize the game plan, but I don't think that Purdy was beating anyone the way that he played that game. With some of the picks were just dreadful.
Sure.
And I think that, he kind of salvaged his EPA and advanced stats because of the rushing, but just his passing was awful. I think the thing with Shanahan is that there's a fairly big sample now that he really struggles against Steve Spagnuolo and against Brian Flores. And those are 2 of his losses this year. Those are the 2 games where the offense has really stilted, because in the other 2 losses, the offense was awesome against the Rams, and the offense moved the ball fine against Arizona. So they didn't have a kicker to be able to put the game away, and Jordan Mason fumbled inside the 10. What are you supposed to do? So I think I lean towards the fact that they've just kind of gotten unlucky. They've had 2 bad matchups where Shanahan has fallen on his face, as he has previously against those same D coordinators. But now the issue is they've lost players and they've lost real personnel. And so when you're projecting this team forward, you have to do so without their best receiver, with real questions about their superstar running back, and with questions about Deebo Samuel and George Kittle as well. So as far as this game goes, I just don't think the Cowboys are very good in their current state. And I think that what is most likely to happen is that the Niners are going to run the ball successfully. The Niners will have just enough in the passing game with Jawan Jennings, and we'll see about Kittle, to be able to hit some deep shots. And I think the defense is actually going to give Dallas some issues, because Dallas, their rushing offense is not scary at all. That's the Niners where they've really struggled. I think Nick Bosa is just going to eat against any matchup that he wants at tackle, really. And so I think that the Niners defense, which I'm not particularly high on overall, but I think that is going to be the unit that ultimately defines this game. But what do you think about where San Francisco's defense is at after a pretty unimpressive showing against Kansas City?
I still like the defense fine. I think they're top half pretty obviously, maybe top 10 as currently rostered. And yeah, I mean, the Cowboys offense has been relatively straightforward to scheme for. There's not a lot going on there, particularly in the running attack. It's very one-dimensional, and it's very single player centric, which is because they only have one good player. Yeah, I mean, I think the Niners should look pretty awesome defensively in this game. I agree. All of my head scratching is really about, can the Cowboys defense, have a bounce back performance with the return of Micah Parsons, and can the Niners find the magic and the wrinkles that made them such a special team the last handful of years. And the tweet by David Lombardi has been rattling around my brain all morning. The 49ers have generated one explosive play on a target behind the line of scrimmage this season. They had 70 during the Kyle Shanahan regime before this. Like, for some reason, that's not working anymore. And I can't believe that it's as straightforward as they missed CMC, because they've been able to do it with guys who have stepped in who I've never heard of. And so I just can't believe that this is this is a personnel only issue. And honestly, if you were to tell me what's the one thing that the Cowboys defense does not want you to do, it's really create mismatches against their linebacking core, which is super weak. So maybe if they get back to that in terms of mixing that in, that makes things a little bit easier for Purdy in the intermediate and deep part of the passing game, and that should be relatively successful against this Cowboys defense. So I have so much Niners everything that is underwater right now that I'm hesitant to play this -4, but I'm pretty sure that's the right side.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Also, one sneaky thing, like Micah Parsons, who did his high ankle sprain a month ago. I think the idea has been that, coming off the bye, Parsons will be back. This is always the target date. Like, he's still, at this point, not practicing. Mike McCarthy said that he has not passed the return to play threshold an hour ago as we're recording, and that he has to do something on Saturday to be able to play against the 49ers. My gut sense, which is cultivated by, I guess, years of reading between the lines on all the tweets that are out there, I would guess that Parsons is going to play, but I don't think he's going to just be Micah Parsons. Like, I was pretty surprised that, like, the video of him walking into the stadium against the Lions for Dallas's previous game, he has a massive limp. And there's going to have been 14 days that have passed since that game. But, like, if he has a massive limp 14 days ago, he's probably not going to be full go Micah Parsons, best defensive player in the league. If he does play on Sunday, if he even does play at all. So that's just another concern to add for the Cowboys.
Mike Parsons hasn't been himself all year, Jay.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right? You kind of, that's a weird thing. I mean, I was always just projecting a small sample. He's still Micah Parsons. He'll figure it out. But yeah, it's a new scheme for Parsons. He hasn't been as dominant since even towards the end of last year. I think that was a lot skewed by the fact that they just went up against a lot of good offensive lines and he's getting double teamed. Still think he was Micah Parsons, but yeah, he hasn't been getting the sack numbers for a while, for whatever that is worth. Even if the pressures are still there, I think he's going to be fine when he's healthy. I'm just not sure that he's healthy at the moment. All right, let's close out with our best bets. I'm going with the greatest of all time, Patrick Mahomes, over 1.5 passing touchdowns against the Las Vegas Raiders. This price is -115 at the moment. I just think with Mahomes that it's gone a little bit too far in terms of the perception of his utility and his ability to produce stats in this offense. Mahomes has been, the San Francisco game wasn't great, but Mahomes was magnificent against the Saints on Monday Night Football. Now, it was against the Saints, whose defense apparently is just trash out of nowhere. I don't really understand how it's so bad all of a sudden. But I think Mahomes has just been getting extraordinarily unlucky with not being able to just get touchdown passes, where he had 2 basically stolen away from him by Paulson Adebo pass interferences. He had 1 called back by penalty against the Saints. The pick that he threw against the Saints in the end zone was a touchdown that Juju Smith-Schuster just dropped. And against the Niners, I think there was just like an overwhelming skew to running plays with how it shook out, where they just kept on getting tackled at like the 1. So I think this is going to regress. I think the fact that they are such heavy favorites against the Raiders team that just right now is just nowhere. I think Mahomes is going to be in scoring position often enough that he does get 2. Also, and I'd be keen for your thoughts on this, but last year, having had a big bet on Mahomes to win MVP last year and watching the Chiefs offense every week, the Chiefs offense last year, it felt more hopeless than it does to me this year, where this year I do think just having Xavier Worthy just gives the offense a bit more space. And Mahomes, he basically, he got Worthy 2 or 3 times in the Saints game. It's just there was DPIs instead of touchdowns. He missed Worthy wide open on what would have been, I think, a 60-yard touchdown against the Niners. Like, just those plays didn't exist last year. And I think that just having Worthy there creates a bit more oxygen for this offense. And I think that it's going to get better as the season goes on. DeAndre Hopkins will help there as well. So Mahomes over 1.5 passing touchdowns is my bet.
Yeah, I agree with your underlying sentiment about the offense looking at least less hopeless. Everything kind of, the space that Xavier Worthy is creating, ironically, is allowing Pat Mahomes to be even more dangerous as a scrambler, which is apparently the most unstoppable play in football. But that's a fun one, and I only worry about the whatever celebration the Chiefs have planned for the Raiders after all of the talking the Raiders have done in the last 6 months. So could get weird there in Las Vegas in a game that I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs can pitch a shutout. So weird one, but I like your luck. I'm gonna have to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars as my best bet, plus the 4 points. I think this is an opportunity for the Jaguars to continue to come together offensively against the Packers defense that I still hold as overrated. I think the Packers offense is certainly a little bit spooky in this contest for me to take on because the Jaguars defense obviously has huge coverage issues, but they are at least now able to generate a bit more of a pass rush, which is exciting. And I think that if you can generate a lead in this contest, then I'd like the Jaguars offense to be sort of the standout unit here. Jags plus the 4 points is about 1.5 points shy of what my fare would be. I think this should be closer to 3. And I think that right now Trevor Lawrence is kind of on a trajectory where people have gone from completely giving up on him 3 weeks ago to, oh yeah, right, I forgot he's a top 10 quarterback in this league. And he is just suffering from just a plethora of mistakes and drops by the wide receivers and the running backs. And he is throwing the ball much, much, much more confidently than what we saw as he was trying to kind of understand and optimize the new system that he was being asked to run, which was more aggressive and pass heavy down the field. They found kind of a happy medium where that's still part of the game, but there's a lot more underneath and intermediate stuff for him to kind of balance it out with. And I think Lawrence has a standout day here against a Packers defense that is havable, as long as you're throwing it away from Xavier McKinney. And so, yes, let's go Jags. And as kind of a caveat, and we talked about it early in the week, I was kicking around prices on how to take advantage of the overrated Texans in terms of, win probability in the AFC South. Ultimately landed on Jags 25-1. I think there is definitely scope for Houston to stub their toes with the much tougher schedule these next handful of weeks, and that gap to be narrowed by the time we get to December.
Yep, I like that 25-1 slide value by my fair on the Jags as well. I think Lawrence has been a lot better than people have given him credit for this year. Even if he hasn't been amazing, he's been getting very unlucky with a lot of the underlying metrics. And he has Brian Thomas Jr., I think he's pretty clearly, unless I'm forgetting someone, the best receiver he's ever had.
Yeah.
And who should continue to get better, I think, as the year goes on. All right, we are done for today. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks for those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. For myself and Drew, good luck this weekend.